What happens when science, ethics, and strategy come together to drive life changing medicines to market? Welcome to Industry Ignited, the show that explores the leaders, ideas, and innovations redefining industries around the world. I'm your host, Dr. Leeanne Aguilar, and today we're diving into the evolving world of pharmaceutical leadership, bioethics, and commercialization strategy. My guest is Dr. Laurie Myers, CEO of Hallett Davis Strategic Group, a firm that helps pharmaceutical companies achieve commercialization success through strategic operations, ethical leadership, and deep industry expertise. Laurie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Leanne. Yes.
All right, I'm looking forward to today's conversation. Laurie, your career began in toxicology and preclinical research before moving into executive leadership and commercialization. What inspired that transition?
So my company was going through a transition. My company was going through a restructuring. I happened to be on a multifunctional team, and there was a senior leader who was familiar with me and saw that I delivered. And so when my job was done away with in the company, he offered me a job in marketing. So I was a scientist, and I was a little concerned because not only was I living in New Jersey, I had to move to Cincinnati, Ohio. But I took the leap of faith and I never looked back. I stayed in marketing for 20 years. So I literally made this chasm of a jump from science to marketing in one leap, but because somebody saw something in me
Wow.
and it kept going.
Yeah. So was marketing anything you'd ever even considered before? Did you?
Never.
No. Wow. Yeah.
I mean, the thought of me going into business, I was really a trained scientist, bachelor's, master's,
Yeah.
a PhD, and two postdocs. And so, but it was such a unique offer, and my job was being done away with. So I
Right.
was in the same company, people
Yeah.
knew me. And I did think that if I didn't like it, I'd have 1 year, they would take me back on the science side.
Oh,
And I
okay.
really never looked back.
Right. Well, and I guess it makes sense because you understood the world. You understood the terminology, the
Correct.
science, what was happening in the company and what their products, were
Yeah,
and
that's
did.
true.
So, I mean, that makes sense. It's just very interesting is that what did he see in you that made him, I guess, believe that you'd be great at marketing?
Well, first off, he was a gentleman who was a physician, and he had started out in the sciences himself. So he became a business manager. So he knew he had to train someone to do that,
Got
the
it.
strategy in and around marketing. I guess I was diligent. I delivered when I said I would do something. I did it, and it was just one of those things. I'll say that now and multiply down the road. If you get an offer of something, at least consider it. It may be very bizarre. My family thought, what the heck is going on now? And I'm an East Coaster, and you're asking me to move to the Midwest. But it changed the whole trajectory of my career.
Right, and you loved it, and you
And I
didn't look
loved it.
back. Yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
wow. So you've worked now for some of the world's biggest pharma companies. What did those early experiences teach you about leadership, resilience, and innovation?
Right. Well, I will say, working for a big company, they always have the financial resources to do different things. And whether you like it or not, I'm a scientist when I realized one day that without money, you don't get anything done, not even good science. So you're surrounded by good leaders. At that time, there weren't many women leaders, but there were some that would be mentors to you. I had some very good male mentors. And ultimately, I wound up working for the CEO who was the CEO early in my career. I wound up staying with him for many years and worked for him as his VP of marketing later on in my career. So you have relationships with people who then will bring you up the ladder. And then the other thing too, at that time, I was working for a small biotech company within Novartis, which is the first company I was. It was
Mhm.
called the Cytokine Development Group. And we were competing with the Amgens of the world. They eventually beat us, but we were in relationship with Shearing Plow, and they created this small entity in the company. Small companies can't do that. Only large companies can take these innovative paths to put a focus on certain products. And that was what was done. As I said, Amgen eventually beat us with
Mhm.
Neupogen and Epogen, but it was a whirlwind, and I was able to then have biotechnology. And actually, I even published a book on the
Uh-huh.
safety assessment of biotechnology at that time. So it gives you an look into the various aspects of what can be in business in the pharmaceutical world.
Right. Oh, so interesting. And yeah, I guess the corporate size and the resources
The
of a
infrastructure,
corporation is the
yeah,
infrastructure, and it gives you or you have capabilities that smaller,
that's right.
businesses just don't.
And they do have the pockets to be able to support innovation. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I do find it interesting though, because it takes larger companies longer to innovate sometimes because of the hierarchy or regulations and processes, approvals and that kind of thing. That often another guest was telling me that they'll buy up a startup who's already so far along with that innovation. They'll let the smaller company get started on the innovation, and then they'll take them on and integrate them, or acquire them. Yeah.
I didn't know how that was going to happen. Early in my career, they would say that small companies would then be the development pipeline for larger companies. It did
Hmm.
happen along the way. I don't know who predicted that. I remember reading it and thinking, oh, that's never going to happen. And it did.
Yeah.
But, that was one thing that at that time Novartis had done was create this small entity which could focus on cytokines and compete with the smaller companies. Amgen was small at that time, not anymore. But you'll see it today now where like
Mhm.
Sanofi is in relationship with Regeneron. And so larger pharma become in relationship with the company and then potentially buy it in or even let them live as a satellite and support them along the way.
That's a
So
point.
yes, it has happened where small companies have become the development pipeline.
Yeah, okay. And I guess, yeah, that makes sense, like, the more I learn about it and how the 2 different sizes of entities, operate and what their strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses are.
And symbiosis, yes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, we talked a little bit about how you went from this, science and into marketing. What was it like to navigate the shift from that science-driven roles to marketing and operations in such a heavily regulated, high-stakes industry?
So the first thing I did is I literally walked into my first business meeting and you could have been talking Greek. I had no idea. I mean, I literally didn't know what a P&L was. I was completely trained in science. But I then sat down on weekends and I learned all the regs because now I'm in a marketing department and I have to understand what is appropriate, legal, within compliance on the commercial side. And so I would sit down with regulatory books on the weekend. And then very shortly after that, I went and got my MBA in pharmaceutical marketing. So if you're a science person, you're a student, you're a learner. And so I know how to learn, and that's to go to classes. So I literally then spent my weekends for the next 2 years and got an executive MBA. And
Yeah.
that was really how it started.
Right, and I can relate to that. That happened to me too. It's like I found myself in business suddenly, but I had the marketing, but I didn't have the business, and now here
Mhm.
I am running a business, and so
Right.
right, I would say I did things a little bit
Yeah.
backwards, so
Yeah.
afterwards went and
Yeah.
got my
That's right. Yeah.
MBA
Seat
and
of the pants.
PhD, and exactly, exactly. Now, you've mentioned that one of your strengths is translating science into business. How did you develop that ability, and why is it so critical today?
Yeah. Well, when I was hired into the marketing role, it wasn't normal for science people to go into business, maybe in new products marketing or commercial development, but certainly not in inline marketing. But I can learn therapeutic areas very quickly. So it allows me to be a generalist. If I want to specialize, I can. Over time, I actually did specialize in so I could learn quickly about a therapeutic area, which is a benefit. I also can talk to doctors. So I don't just talk to doctors on the level of commercial. I actually know the science. I actually can understand the clinical attributes of something maybe a little quicker. But I will say I have worked with some amazing sales reps, sales professionals that know their products and their therapeutic areas as any scientist would. So I don't underestimate that. But I think that was the benefit. Then over time, when you learn the rhythm of marketing, when you learn the
Mhm.
rhythm, there is a pathway, there is a flow, just like there is in science, there's a flow to marketing. Understanding your market, understanding your competitors, understanding what the drivers will make your product in particular successful. And then you can talk to both the science people to make sure, let's say clinical people, to get those endpoints that are relevant in the commercial world into the studies. And that actually evolved over time. So I think that's where I became, I'll say, a translator. And then on the other side, now that I know business for 30, say 25 years, I can then say to somebody who's in on the commercial, on the clinical side or the R&D side, this is why these endpoints need to be done. I
Right.
work in infectious disease. This is why you have to have a once a day pill as opposed to a 3 times a day pill. And so you can translate back and forth. And I think that many people have that skill set today.
Yeah. No, that is a powerful, skill set. That makes a lot of sense, but you do see that skill set more
Yes,
prevalent in the
especially in the
yeah,
pharmaceutical industry.
yeah,
We sell drugs. I mean,
yeah,
we make, market, and sell drugs, and so you have to understand both sides of the coin.
right. Now you've witnessed the evolution of pharma from the pre-internet era to today's world of AI-driven drug discovery. How has technology changed the way that industry operates?
Firstly, I just say mind blown when and now I'm learning about AI. I'm actually taking courses on AI to understand the implications and attending seminars for the implications in the pharma space. I I was early enough in the early days of the internet. Now, on the science side, we used internal internet way before the public domain used it. I was in an international company, Novartis. I worked with people in Japan. I worked with people in Europe. And so we had always had internet services early days. And then, of course, it catapulted, and information was so quick where you used to use, I'll use words maybe most people won't even know, microfiche to find out information in a library.
Yeah,
And now you can, but AI exponentially quicker. I use ChatGPT all the time now. I'm amazed. I mean, I'm like, where have I been? Because I was very busy. You know, when you're busy in your day job, you don't always get a chance. So
right.
now that I've started my consultancy again, I'm taking the time to become more informed, more educated in the AI ethics compliance space.
Mhm.
And how will I play in that? I don't know yet. And there's still so many things I'm learning that I don't know that I even can give advice. But I will say, learn it. It's coming, or I'll
Yeah,
say it's here.
right. Exactly.
And the ethical issues will evolve. They'll become apparent. We'll have to deal with them right in the moment. So to have people trained in pharma who understand that. As a matter of fact, I'm taking an online course right now from MIT, and I think 45 to 50 students, I'll say 95% of them are ingrained pharma people who are taking this course, which I think is fabulous. I can only
Right.
imagine the level of conversation that's going to occur.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, there are serious ethical challenges, I mean, with AI. So from your perspective, what guardrails are needed to ensure AI is both effective and ethical?
Yeah. And I guess I wish I could answer that directly. I think, as I said, we're going to discover them along the way, and they'll be different in different verticals. So when you deal in the regulatory space, they'll be different. They'll be different than when you're dealing in the clinical operations space or on the commercial space. And I think, and I do know of people that are paying attention too. I will call out a company called Indogene, which was a company started in India, but now has a site in Princeton, New Jersey, and
Mhm.
they are way ingrained in understanding all of the different dynamics of AI, whether it be clinical or IT or regulatory, and on the commercial side. And I give them credit for being so evolved in the AI and pharma space.
Yeah, so it is at the forefront of
Absolutely.
attention and it's
Yeah.
being, developed as
And
we
and
speak, yeah.
and experts really are paying attention, so that is
Yeah.
good.
That
So
is great.
I don't think we should fear AI, but I think we do need to be intimate with it.
Yeah, right. Now, you've spoken about the rise of truth sources in AI and data. How can the industry balance speed and innovation with accuracy and credibility in scientific communication?
Yeah, and so when I attended a seminar, it's not going to be done by the inside of the industry alone. It has to be done by the ChatGPT, the Google people. They all have to be ingrained, taking care of their particular piece of the action. I'll just give one example that I heard at a seminar. So a truth source in our space, in the pharma space, is NIH. And so AI is learning that it has to see where the credible references are for a source. And
Mhm.
NIH would be one of them. So if somebody puts forth an NIH article, AI will recognize that as a truth source. So it's on both sides. Pharma has to be collaborative with the AI agent holders and be able to say these are truth sources that the AI agent has to respect and understand and accept. And if not, then take a question. So again, that was a complete learning for me that this was even going on, but I'm
Mhm.
glad it is. That's the
Right.
thing. That's what makes me confident is that there are ethical people in the industry, ethical people in different verticals in the industry that are truly paying attention for the good of the industry,
Yeah.
of the data, and of patients.
Yeah, right. Because with I mean, AI, it's a learning platform, and so it depends on the data that we are feeding it. So, if we're not feeding it quality data, then it's not going to output quality information, and if we are basing science, or decisions that have implications for people or for drugs, that, yeah, is a big concern, just making sure it's quality data that's being
Well,
used.
there is another example. So, in the clinical trial space, historical data doesn't always have a lot of data on women, and it also doesn't always have a lot of data on people of color.
Right,
And so, when AI is using these historical databases, will they be misinformed, or will it be not accurate enough? And so, it is up to the pharma to then go in and make sure that a human being is reviewing all of this information. So you don't just rely on the AI as an amazing data source and data integrator, but that
right,
a human being who is versed in clinical operations in this case is reviewing that to make sure that it's accurate.
right. Yeah, that's a good point. Now, you've seen product launches from multiple angles: science, strategy, and commercialization. What's one lesson you've learned about bringing a product successfully to market?
Hmm. One. Oh my.
Or two.
Okay.
Give us some examples.
um, I get so I'll say if it's me, I can only speak, of course, to myself. I listen to the healthcare practitioners and the data in the marketplace. So, those two things. There is robust data on most therapeutic areas, and you have to be informed about them on how your product measures good, bad, and different against that. But also, the healthcare practitioners, nurses, physicians, pharmacists know what their patients need, and you need to listen to that. So, maybe
Mhm.
the best skill is listening.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I hear that a lot. I mean, it's from leaders in various, industries, but it's learning to listen. Not only, I mean, know what is needed in the market, but also what's working, what's not working, what adjustments need to be made. Um, and then looking at the data and integrating the data as well. Because when it comes to marketing, you've got to consider feedback from social media sources, even from various platforms, because it's a different kind of data. I mean, patients will tell their doctors one thing, let's say, but then they're going to tell their friends and their family members, and they're going to talk about it differently in the real world. So it's like, how do you listen to all of that and then integrate it in a way that's, most effective and
Thoughtful,
beneficial?
respectful. Yes, agree.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So very interesting. Now, after decades of corporate pharma, you decided to start Hallett Davis Strategic Group. What motivated you to create your own company?
Yeah. In fact, I created this company in 2006. Not only did companies restructure, but the middle of my career was like merger mania. So I was through uh, Sandoz Ciba-Geigy becoming Novartis, Rhone-Poulenc becoming Aventis, Aventis becoming Sanofi Aventis. I worked at Pharmacia, it rolled into Pfizer. And
Wow.
so every time I would be necessary out of a job for a bit. And
Uh-huh.
so I worked with this executive coach and he said, why don't you just start your own company? And I thought, well, it wasn't what I planned to do, but it has allowed me in the interim to keep my family functional, financially functional. And my job was restructured in August. And so I resurrected it again. And what's going to happen now? I've only been doing it for 2 months. I don't know. But I have a good network of people. I'm hoping that I will either get consulting work or maybe I'll wind up back in a full-time position. I don't know. But it does allow me then to have that energy to reignite that and keep yourself going mentally, spiritually during these transitions because it's not so easy.
Right.
But to say, okay, here I am, I'm going out again. And so I brought up Hallett Davis Strategic Group one more time.
Yeah.
And it also does allow, has a certain amount of privacy. And also it's a tax shelter. So there's many things that have benefit. I have an EIN number, and so I don't have to give my personal social security number out to everyone. So
Right.
there are benefits to having a small consultancy, both financially and then, of course, for security.
Yeah. So, what was your biggest learning or takeaways from all of the mergers and acquisitions that you went through? I mean,
Hold
throughout
on
the
to your
years.
shorts.
I mean, because that's a lot of experience. I mean, what did you learn? Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, If you're staying in one company for 30 years, you have a certain network. My network is very, very big now because I made then colleagues and friends in multiple companies. So first off, that was a great benefit. And I still
Yeah.
have many of those connections along the way. You do get flexible. You have to learn a different culture. So you've been in one culture. The next culture is not going to be the same. And the other thing too is maybe sometimes it's fish or cut bait. I went into one company, I won't mention any names. I only lasted there 9 months. I knew full well this was not going to be the company that would support my growth. It just was not a good fit. So when I was offered another job, I left. Normally, it's not a good thing to leave a company within 9 months, but in this case, it was. And so you have to have self-reflection on what is good for you, your career, your family, however that works. So you get a number of skill sets: resilience,
Yeah.
flexibility, the ability to see through difficult situations, will they work for you or not?
Hmm.
And then keep going, never
Right.
quit.
Yeah. No, that good takeaways and right, like learning to navigate, like you said, difficult situations or the unexpected and yeah, navigating change. Now you've said this phase of your career is about mentoring, advising, and helping others succeed. How does your definition of leadership or how has it evolved over time?
Well, so first and there's always a maturity. You become more empathetic to other people's issues. I mean, I'm a type A. When I was 40, I was all driving, steamroller, full ahead, and that gets softened over time, which is a good thing. I have no complaints about that. I also had personal challenges. I was married and divorced, and so you have to navigate through these complicated personal situations, yet still keep a public face and your job.
Right.
And then I also became a parent, which is a blessing. But it teaches you different things. You can't always have your way. You have to learn to compromise in a different situation. And I do think there are certain management tenants that are also good parental tenants. And so you just get better at all those things. So I think I've just gotten more accommodating to the other person over time, more understanding that people do have a personal life that may or may not integrate at that moment with their career life. And how do we, the two people, manager and maybe the employee, sort that out together? And that there's a bigger picture other than you, which maybe that's a maturing factor.
What were your takeaways or advice from managing those situations with employees or like you mentioned in leadership when there might be conflicting interests or difficult situations? What would be your advice?
Well, I can't say I was always good at it. I mean, I hope I got better over time. Sometimes you do have to fire somebody, and that is always difficult, especially if it's a person you hired. And I've had to fire people I've hired more than once. And sometimes the person you hired in that job is not good for that role.
Mhm.
But again, and if you're in a big company, there are other roles that might be applicable for that person. So they don't necessarily lose their ability to support their families. They just have to switch a little. And I've done that a couple of times and that's worked out very well. So in a
Right.
big company, if you know somebody isn't going to work well with you or your group, perhaps look outside your group and see where else they might fit in.
Right.
And,
Just like
that
it
has
yeah.
both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, just like it did for your career
Yeah.
with the
Right. It
from
did. It
researcher
did. Somebody
to
did that.
marketing.
Um,
Yeah.
but then again, sometimes you just have to outright fire somebody and bite the bullet, and it is never easy.
Yeah.
It's hard. You know somebody's going to go through a struggle. It's something they didn't expect. I have had happen to me, so I recognize, and maybe that's the other thing. When you know what it feels like, you tend to be more empathetic when you have to hand that out.
Right. And I mean, how do you manage that? Like, I mean, sometimes it is for the best, and it ends up being for the best, oftentimes for the company or the employee, but it's still a difficult thing to navigate. I mean, how do you manage it? And I mean, what's the mindset, I guess, behind that?
Well, I think first off, every employee that is potentially being restructured, I'll use that high level term, is different. So they all have different situations. They're different gender, they're different ages, different experience levels, and so you have to be thoughtful of that. So let's
Mhm.
say you're firing somebody who's just new in their career, but they didn't fit in. And now they're going to go through this terrible mental situation. You have the ability as the manager to soften some of that.
Right.
I actually had to let somebody go who was much older, and it was hard because I wasn't sure that she was ever going to get another position. In fact, she never did, and that hurt me immensely. I mean, I'll say it probably still hurts me, but I knew it was best for the company, and in
Yeah.
the end, I'm employed by that company. And so it sounds very cruel or cool, but it isn't. You are a manager, you have a responsibility to your company, and that is the high. I mean, I've even had to be involved in during those restructuring times where I, as a manager, knew we were going to be restructured.
Hmm.
And in fact, my employees did not. Not
Uh,
because we were publicly traded, that could never be divulged.
right.
You're part of an internal group, and you know these people are going to lose their job, and
Yeah.
probably you as well. And you still have to hold close to the vest. These are very
Right.
difficult things to do. Because
Yeah.
in the end, they say to you, you knew. I did know, but I
Hmm.
couldn't tell you.
Right. No, you're bound by the ethical commitments,
Correct.
to
It's
that
publicly
company.
traded, and that
Yeah.
is it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Absolutely. The term fractional executive is becoming more common in business. How do you see experienced leaders like yourself bringing value in this flexible advisory model?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because we're a couple of friends of mine and I were laughing at this fractional employee. We probably used to be called a contract employer.
Exactly.
But whatever they call it, whatever the new term is, so be it. I mean, I think it. I put my name in the hat to be a fractional CEO. I could run a company for a short time if somebody was having a hard time finding an interim, somebody's retired unexpectedly. All kinds of things happen in small pharma particularly. In big pharma, they tend to plan for these things. They have contingencies. But yeah, I think it's great. I think, at a certain point, some people financially can weather fractional employment, contract employment. And let's face it, contract employment, don't underestimate it. It can turn into a full-time job.
Mhm.
So if somebody is in a transition, their company was downsized, their job was done away with for whatever reason, do not underestimate part-time or contract fractional employment, whatever you want to call it, because it could get your foot in the door in another company, or it puts a different skill set on your resume. So I think that
Yeah.
that benefits both the company and the employee long term.
Right. Yeah, very true. That's a great perspective. Talk to others, leaders who are intentional about being fractional, like they go into a company as a fractional employee with the intention of just working there for 3 to 4 years or over just a period of time in order to help restructure that company, if you would, or turn it around, get it to a certain point, and then move on. And they work in that capacity in several different companies simultaneously, but learning new skill sets, networking, meeting more people. I mean, I think there are a lot of advantages to that type
Yeah,
of.
and if you are an empathetic leader, which I hope I think I am, if you go into a company, you recognize that there are people that are going to be shocked, concerned, angry, and so hopefully with experience as a fractional leader, you can minimize or soften some of those things that that company is going to go through. So I think experienced leaders bring a lot to fractional employment.
Right. Now, how do you navigate, like, the communications when I mean, because I know they're confidential and proprietary, there's confidential and proprietary information during transitions like that, but then you're also trying to ease the, pain or the, discomfort of employees, being empathetic. What does that look? How do you navigate that
Yeah, I
transition?
don't. I'll just tell you what I'm going to say from a philosophical point of view because I haven't done it yet. But I mean, I've been in enough companies during transition. Look, there's a certain amount of honesty you can have, and you walk with that. That you have to have, right? That's the integrity part of things. But then you might just say, I am not at liberty to discuss that with you.
Mhm.
And that person may or may not love that answer. But if it's the honest answer and maybe they will or will not get the information down the line, it's still what you have to say. And then the other thing too is any employee, fractional contract, we all sign confidentiality agreements and we all sign employment agreements of some sort.
Right,
And you have to abide by those rules, whatever they are. So it may not make an employee the happiest person in the moment, but it is still the high road.
right. I get that. Now, having worked across startups and global giants, what do you see as the biggest difference between leading a large organization versus a lean entrepreneurial one?
Yeah. Um, hmm. So in big pharma, you have a lot of resources. They're at your fingertips. And again, Some of them are financially driven, which is great. Data, HR departments that can help you with situations. Other colleagues that are very experienced. My experience of Pharma, many of us had a lot of experience on the leadership team. So we could move from one therapeutic area to another quickly. We could move from rolling up your sleeves and doing things you never did before because maybe you can talk to somebody. I will say in my last company, I had a lot of hats that I never had before, but because we had a very small group of people and we had to manage our finances, you learned.
Hmm.
But again, I've had blessing of a lifetime of learning. And so I can figure out how to pick something up quickly. Also, along the way, and probably more from my marketing side, I learned to manage well agencies. And do not underestimate the learning from an agency. A lot of my marketing learning was literally sucking the brains of my agency colleagues because they
Yeah.
did this every single day. And I
Right.
was going to maybe do that particular thing for 6 months and move on to the next particular thing.
Right.
And so why not learn from them? They are the experts. So learning to learn from your agencies and manage your agencies help you navigate in a small company because we do work with a lot of agencies.
Right. Yeah, that's right, and as an agency owner, I mean,
Yeah,
from
of
the other
course.
side of it, relate to, I
Yeah,
mean, we're, yeah, constantly educating and working very
of course.
closely, because on the other hand, like, as an agency, we're always learning our clients. We're having to be very, open and have that listening of our clients to see how we can best support them. And because the better the communication and the better our clients understand what we need from them, the better results we can provide as well, right?
Right.
So
And I'll say I've worked in agencies a few times, but on the manufacturer side, which is what the former is,
mhm,
um, you need to learn that if your agency is not working well, it may have to do with how you're directing them. It may have to do with the information you are providing them. If
yes.
you do not provide them with the correct information, they really can't meet their game.
Yeah,
And agency life is very different than the sponsor side. I'll use that as a global term, because we do run the show,
right.
but it doesn't mean you have to be the steamroller. You can just be collaborative is a good word.
Yes. Right. And just like with AI, like you were saying, the better information you feed it,
Mhm.
with an agency, the better
With
output
an
you get.
agency.
Absolutely.
Agree.
So, yeah, and agencies like your AI,
Yeah.
operator, right?
The new word AI agent is the agency.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you've also been passionate about supporting women in leadership throughout your career. What progress have you seen and what still needs to change?
Yeah. Well, certainly, there has been a lot of progress. I still don't see the amount of women in leadership roles. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I think that's a whole nother podcast. But I will say I do see women participating more, certainly middle management and early upper leadership. And part of that is the changing dynamics in the world. Young men today had mothers who were workers.
Mhm.
That of my generation, nobody's mother worked. So they were used to seeing women in the workplace. So they're way more supportive of their wives as collaborative revenue generators. I
Yeah.
That is not from my generation. That
Yeah.
had to evolve. Now, I'd certainly know women like myself when I'm not married at this time, but when I was married, my husband stayed home with our daughter. And
Mhm.
so it was a different dynamic. And that does happen as you come up the ladder more, you see. And my boss's husband stayed home, and my boss's boss's husband stayed home. And so in the farmer world, because we traveled a lot, it was the better dynamic for the family. But today, the young people are figuring out how to do it together.
Mhm.
And that allows women to come up the ladder. That allows women to be more forceful in the marketplace. And I say that respectfully. They don't have to be crazy people, but
Right.
to advance their career in the marketplace.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And with so much uncertainty in healthcare and innovation, what mindset helps leaders stay focused and resilient?
Whether people really want to believe this, the majority of us, I wouldn't say everybody, we really do it for the right reasons.
Mhm.
I love and still love my career in the pharmaceutical industry. I believe that I brought something to someone at some time. And I don't know that anyone in the pharma industry done that. I mean, the admins, everybody does. We're all part of that continuum. And so I just think that, and they're very generous. I have rarely reached out to someone in my industry, particularly a past colleague, that wouldn't answer my call. I mean, the embracing of another pharma person. I don't know. I don't only know my industry, so I don't know
Uh-huh.
if that's every industry. I've gotten calls from people in graduate studies or in here it's Kansas University. I live in Missouri. Um, that I'll pick up the phone and talk to them for an hour. I may never hear from them again. And I'm not sure that every industry is like that. But we
Right.
do embrace each other.
Yeah.
And that I just think brings a holistic point of view. Does the pharma industry make mistakes? Of course. But do they try to fix them? They do.
Hmm.
And I am saddened, my heart is saddened by how science is maligned today. So I'd like to see that turn around.
Right. So you're saying like in the pharma industry particularly, it's very relationship driven. It's very, and do you think it's because people move from company to company or, and because of like the tendency for there to be more mergers and acquisitions and, uh,
No, I think it's
or,
because we all spend a lot of time doing what we do.
mhm.
Everybody in the marketing, they're experts in marketing and pharmaceutical industry. I don't know how to market cars, but I can tell you how to market a drug product.
Yeah.
If they're in science, they spend their life learning about their science, developing their science, participating in that science with other scientists. This is their life. And I think that energy that's there is regardless of where. If you're in the finance department, your life is the pharmaceutical industry and knowing how to make revenue and how to make sure that that revenue turns into new products. So I don't think there's anyone who doesn't have that energy. That has been my
All
experience.
right. So just really that connection to purpose and that
Yeah,
connection to
for,
what the difference that you're making in the world
in the
for
world.
people
Yeah,
through the
and
pharmaceuticals.
I know that sounds hokey, but I do believe it's true.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean,
Mm.
that's the experience that
That
you're
has been my
sharing. Yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yeah. And Lori, finally, for those entering the industry or looking to pivot mid-career, what advice would you give them about finding their purpose and staying in the game?
Oh, staying in the game, that's the big one. First off, you can't ever quit. I have been in and out of many jobs. I have been in science, I've been in marketing, and I've been in operations. And for some reason, I'm still not done, whatever that is. But so stay in the game. It isn't easy every day. Take a breath, find friends, find what it is you love within the industry, and do it. Never give up on that. But I do think being flexible, being open to opportunities, like, out of the blue, somebody gives me a marketing opportunity. I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do with them? My whole family was like, what are you going to do now? And I did it. And I knew that I didn't have to do it forever. So I had a backup. I thought, well, I'll do it for 1 year. And if I hate it, I'll go back to science. But
Hmm.
first off, I never left science. My science walks with me every day as a pharmaceutical businesswoman.
Right.
So that is the other point of view. Science, if you're a scientist, you're a scientist throughout,
Yeah.
even if you use it to practice business.
Yeah. Well, and I'm hearing maybe you're even getting science at a deeper level in some aspects because you're hearing from it from multiple sides. From multiple sources and you're getting more information. You're talking to more people. And so maybe the science is even more meaningful.
It was for me. I don't know that I know many scientists who thought I was a little crazy, and they still do think I was a little crazy, but that's okay. This was my calling.
Yeah.
And theirs is to stay in the basic science or, the development side
Yeah,
of
the
the
R&D
of the
and uh-huh.
industry. Yeah.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, I just think be open to ideas. Do not fear change. It's coming. It's here. It's always going to be here. Even pre-AI,
Yeah.
there's always change. And it's okay. It's all
Yeah.
good.
I like that. Good. Well, Lori, thank you for such a thoughtful and inspiring
My
conversation.
pleasure. Yeah.
For listeners who want to learn more about Hallett Davis Strategic Group or connect with you, where can they find you online?
LinkedIn. I am a big LinkedIn user. I'm probably on a couple of times a day. My contact information is there. Feel free to contact me. I just use LinkedIn because I do read that every day very quickly. So, and I rarely don't answer.
Yeah.
I might not give you the answer you like, but I will
Right.
answer.
Yeah, yeah, me too, and sometimes it's a day or 2 because like, getting through all of the
Yeah.
correspondence and the feeds, but yeah, absolutely. And, well, thank you again. I've
My
enjoyed our
pleasure. Thank you for
conversation.
inviting me.
Yeah. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow and subscribe to Industry Ignited for more stories of leaders shaping the future of business, science, and innovation. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry.